About 2 years ago, I reported that the German economy could lose around 80,000 jobs, if not more, if not over 100,000. Since then, a lot of people have said that maybe that was exaggeration. The German automotive industry is going to be fine. Nothing is going to really change. They just evolve and be different. Well, here's the thing. A recent study has confirmed that job losses are going to be enormous. In fact, this study says that I was massively understating the numbers. And the numbers are likely to be closer to 200, if not more than 200,000. What's going to happen to the German economy? As I mentioned before, the German economy is it's the country that's really in second place behind Japan in terms of its dependence upon its automotive industry for its economy. The German economy relies on manufacturing enormously. It relies on the automotive industry, just like Japan, but less so than Japan, but a lot more so than other countries. What this means, well, anyone knows, but studies are saying it could be a fair bit worse than what we all thought. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. It's great to have you with us. Guys, I'll be at the EV show, the Sydney EV show. I'll put a link in the description on the 8th, 9th and 10th. This week, it's coming up right now, and I've got free tickets for you in the description. Come along. Honestly, if I had a house in Sydney, I'd invite you to stay there. I just don't, unfortunately. I've got to actually go get accommodation at a hotel in Sydney. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, to tell you the truth. Gonna have to stay there 3 nights and then flying out to China to see some new electric cars in China. I'll be live streaming that on the channel, by the way. Studies are saying now that electrification is likely to cost more than 200,000 German automotive jobs by 2035. Now, as you know, that there is 10 indirect jobs for every direct job in the automotive industry. That means 200,000 direct jobs in the automotive industry will be lost. Therefore, the likely implication is that 2 million jobs will be lost in Germany. 2 million. Now, I know this sounds hyperbolic, but this is not coming from me anymore. This is coming from actual studies. This study predicts huge job losses in Germany. It says that Volkswagen demands workers take a 10% pay cut, but not even that is going to be enough to save the German automotive industry. Some of it will still exist. They'll still have boutique models and, special supercars and things like that, I think. But a lot of it will be lost. And that's the reason why Europe has, of course, put on these massive taxes on Chinese electric cars, on Chinese vehicles, period. BYD believes that will be temporary. BYD CEO has said these tariffs on Chinese vehicles, they will be cancelled within a couple of years. This is only temporary. I don't know if that's true though. Now, if you wanted to start work now at 18 years old and you're working, you want to be a mechanic, a car mechanic, and you go into working on internal combustion or whatever it may be, just a mechanic of any kind in Germany, you might maybe consider a different job, maybe consider a different pathway. Now, there's a lot that's going to be in need over the next 10 years. But manufacturing at automotive industry plants isn't one of them. Now, we already know that the Volkswagen Group are going to close, it's very likely, 3 factories in Germany. They've just closed one incredibly Audi EV factory in Brussels, in Belgium. But anyway, in the same week that Volkswagen asked workers to take a 10% pay cut to save their own jobs, an investigation by Prognos, one of the biggest economic analysis businesses in the world, suggested that it might only be delaying the inevitable. The report says the switch to electrification will reduce the number of workers in the German automotive sector by 186,000 in 2035. Compared with 2019 levels, that's, insane. 186,000. So in other words, the inevitable is coming. We are moving to EVs. In 2035, internal combustion is essentially banned in Europe, and that will result in 186,000 direct, not indirect, as in automotive industry support, but direct jobs. Herbert Diess, the CEO of the Volkswagen Group, he warned of this happening, and he mentioned the reasons why. And as I've said many times, he was essentially fired for this. The headcount reduction is the result of the drive systems of electric cars requiring fewer components than the combustion predecessors, meaning that both automaker employees and those working in the supply industry will lose their jobs. There's thousands and thousands of moving parts in an internal combustion vehicle. In an EV, there's very, very few. But that's not the only reason. The other reason, of course, is, well, how many cars does the German automakers sell outside of Germany? How many of those vehicles that are made in Germany do they sell outside of Germany? Heaps of them. I mean, we're talking, literally hundreds and thousands. In fact, in total, it's millions. The German automotive industry is huge. However, really, most people don't believe they're premium anymore. I mean, most people have admitted to this reality. They've admitted to the fact that, yeah, they still make great cars, but they're not technologically the most advanced anymore. So therefore, it'll be difficult. A lot of analysts predict it'll be difficult for BMW, for Porsche, for Mercedes, for Audi to continue charging premium prices. Here's one example, and I think this really stands out. Mercedes-Benz sales in a lot of places worldwide this year have gone down pretty significantly in China, even here in Australia, where brands matter. Here in Australia, people love premium brands. Well, they did used to anyway. Traditionally, they have. Now, Mercedes-Benz just slashed the price of its cheapest car here in Australia, and it did this in other countries as well, but here in Australia, obviously I saw the news and I saw that the price, they'd reduced it by $5,000. Now, I had a look at that car. It's still more expensive than a Tesla Model 3, and it's a little hatchback with I believe it's a 1.8 litre, 2 litre turbo engine. If you want to get all the specifications that you get standard now with a Tesla or an Xpeng or a Zeekr or many models of car now, you've got to pay about an extra $20,000. So you're walking away paying 80,000 Australian dollars, about 60,000 US dollars for a hatchback that honestly does look cheap. They don't really look premium. You can really see that this is a big problem because a large percentage of Mercedes, Audi, BMW's cars, a large percentage that they sell are in that low level premium where they're still expensive, but they're the cheapest ones you can get. They're kind of the cheapest entry level model, but those cars just can't really compete anymore. And I think the allure, the luster of German cars is starting to wear off. Jobs related to welding and metal processing, as well as business management and administration, will become much more scarce, says the report. But automakers will need to recruit more people working in IT, in electrical engineering, and also in mechanical engineering, it says, which is strange. But it's not the kind of mechanical engineering you're thinking. It's a different kind, one that they're not training for right now, or most of them aren't anyway. Overall, though, more jobs will be lost far more than created. So while workers at risk would be raised to retrain, there still won't be enough roles in 2035 for everyone currently employed in the automotive industry. I've had a look at the prognosis report, guys, and honestly, it's good, it's interesting, but I actually think it's full of shit. And the reason is because it doesn't take into consideration the one big elephant in the room that we're all talking about. Everyone's talking about it now. It doesn't take into consideration automation, robotics, robots, advanced machinery that's replacing humans even much faster than China is. That's the truth. Factories now. Manual labor is far less needed. They're replacing 100 employees with one machine. Robots now are working in factories in China. Robots now are working in even factories in Japan. So the truth is that this 185,000 job loss could be far, far greater than that. Keep in mind, these robots, they don't ask for pay rises. They work 24 hours a day. They don't complain. They don't go on strike. They don't do what a lot of the Tesla staff have done in Germany and just don't turn up to their jobs for 8, 9, 10 months to say that there's something wrong with them. Huge percentage of the Tesla staff have done that in Germany. Massive. So you can see why companies will just make the switch. And this will be the greatest threat to jobs. That 185,000 figure, in my opinion, is a massive understatement because it doesn't take that into consideration. It's talking about all these other issues, which they matter and they're important, but they're not the elephant in the room. That is robotics. As Tony Sieber has said numerous times, robots will replace humans, will all be replaced. The prognosis report, though, does say that the transition in the makeup of jobs at German automakers has been going on for the past few years, but will pick up steam over the next 10 years. And nowhere is evidence of the shift clearer than at the Volkswagen Group, which this week asked its employees to take a pay cut. And apparently 3 factories will be closing. This is the first time they've actually ever shut a plant in the company's entire history, says Car Scoops. In fact, only a few days ago, Audi actually did shut its Brussels plant in Belgium, where the electric Q8 is manufactured. Now, apparently that will actually be shuttered for good in February 2025. Volkswagen have tried to sell this plant. And the truth is that automotive industry plants, they're not easy to sell. They're never ever worth anywhere near as much as what the cost was put into them. Now, the Volkswagen Group chiefs claim that radical steps have to be taken to help the company navigate its way through tough times, and workers must be prepared to take sacrifices in the short term if they are to have any hope of safeguarding jobs in the long term. All this stuff, we heard exactly the same rhetoric here in Australia. All right, about 10 years ago, all the same things happened in Australia, right? Negotiations with unions, people were asked to take pay cuts that didn't really work, so people had to be fired. The same thing played out here in Australia. And yes, I know we're not the German automotive industry, but we no longer have an automotive industry. That's what happened. We urgently need a reduction in labour costs in order to maintain our competitiveness. This requires a contribution from the workforce, said Volkswagen brand's personnel boss. The automaker says it's struggling with a perfect storm of rising costs, a slower than expected uptake for its vehicles in Europe and the US, sales declining at a rapid pace in China. And keep in mind, even with a 10% pay cut, Chinese jobs are still around 1/3 or less the cost of an equivalent German employee. Chinese employees work harder and they cost a fraction of the price. And even they are being replaced by robots.